Says we are live.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, September the 1st. This is the September edition of our virtual Texas Normal meeting. Tonight's going to be kind of special. One thing that we miss with these virtual meetings is the chance to really get to know one another after the meeting is over. You know, typically we're at the Flamingo Cantina and, you know, everyone mingles around by the bar or they go upstairs and enjoy some fresh air and get to know each other. And so we really do miss out on a lot of that with these virtual sessions. Now, what we gain from these virtual sessions is being able to connect to more than just our local Austin audience. We can connect to people all over the country and, you know, even all over the globe if they choose to join in with us. So tonight we're going to get to know ourselves. We're going to get to know some of the Texas Normal board members and get to know a little bit of the people behind the scenes, or maybe the people behind the title, if you will, excuse me, of our board members and the people who really are putting in the work, trying to get this goal accomplished here. And so I'll tell you a little bit about myself and kind of how I got into it. 2008 is when I joined Texas Normal. And I joined Texas Normal because I heard that it exists. And man, a group of people hanging out at a reggae bar trying to get ganja legalized, that just sounds like right up my alley. I need to hang out with these people. So I came to my first meeting in probably 2006 or 8, maybe, no, probably 2008. Became a member shortly thereafter, started volunteering. 2013 is when I joined the Texas Normal board. I was an officer. 2014, I became a director, and I've been a director ever since. I've done a multitude of things. I do a lot of work with our events. When we put on events, I do a lot of work there. Mostly at the event themselves. Like I do a lot of work managing the stages, dealing with the bands and the artists, and that's kind of what I do there. But I also put in a lot of hours at the Capitol during the legislative session. I did not this past year just because of COVID and all of those things. And so I admire and appreciate everybody who did. Thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart, because I was not there this session. But that doesn't mean I wasn't using my voice. I was using my voice virtually in this platform and several others as well. So that's a little bit about me. I feel like a lot of you know a little bit about me. I've kind of been around. I've been an MC for several years, so you've seen me around. But some of the people that you may or may not have seen over the years are going to be on this call with us. And so enough about me, really. And we're going to start talking and getting to know our board members. So first, we're going to start with somebody who's actually been involved on our board longer than I have, Miss Lori Zapinski. Lori, can you tell us when you joined Texas Normal, and then also like what brought you to Texas Normal?
Sure. Well, I actually moved to Austin from the Houston area in 2011. And found out about the normal meetings and started attending those, and then started volunteering and became involved in the board 2012, and have just continued to be active and you know, go to the legislature, go to the hearings, testify at hearings, and you know, obviously involved in our events when we were having them, and spending a lot of time doing that, and really outreaching community as much as possible and staying as active as I can on the socials, in order to reach as many people as possible, and you know, get the word out that it's an important issue. And it really does affect everybody, regardless of whether you're a cannabis user or not.
Yeah.
And so everybody, I always like the saying that, you don't have to have breast cancer to support breast cancer awareness.
100%.
Well, you
Absolutely.
don't have to be
Yeah,
a cannabis user to support cannabis legislation. And
absolutely.
I think that, being a grandma and being an older person and working in technology, and I don't quite fit the box, if you will. um, and so bringing those different perspectives and that is really important, I think, especially
Right.
when we go into the legislature.
I like what you mentioned there about being a grandmother, because you've kind of in recent years kind of taken over the role as our senior outreach coordinator, correct?
I am, I think,
Yeah,
the oldest person on our board now.
yeah. Or at least that's kind of your passion right now. I feel like if I'm correct, yes.
Yeah, well, and the fact that cannabis helps so many different conditions, especially as you're getting older and things kind of break down. And
Hmm.
it really, it helps in so many different ways. I personally have neuropathy after being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes quite a few years ago now. The neuropathy is one of the things I don't take pharmaceutical medication for.
Now, do you take like a topical salve of some sort, or do you how do you what is your delivery method for cannabis for your neuropathy treatments?
Well, I use topical and also edible.
Okay,
Edible
that yeah.
helps a lot. I just I've found through experience that I need to be careful to know what edibles I am using, and that we don't it's hard that we don't have a good enough program in Texas that I can say that I can use a 10 milligram THC product X number of times a day safely and still function and still work and still, do everything I need to do and control the pain. So being in Texas and being that we don't have enough THC, or, the the levels aren't adequate to control my pain with what we have that is legal with the hemp program, with the TCUP program.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that makes
And
it hard.
that does. And you're not the only person that I've heard to say that. I've heard many people say that, and I wholeheartedly agree. I wholeheartedly
Well,
agree.
and traveling to other states, when we were traveling, um, I was able to experiment a lot and really find out what helped me and
It
what
really is
dosages.
eye-opening. It really is eye-opening living in Texas. I'm born and raised here in Texas. I've lived here my entire life, and it's eye-opening the first time that you're able to go into a store and tell somebody, look, I have pain here, or I have this issue with sleep, or I have this issue with my appetite, and they can recommend you three different types of products, not just three different strains of cannabis, which they can do, but three or
Right.
four different types of products
Yeah.
that you can choose from that'll benefit. And they've done that research. They know those different characteristics
Mhm.
that the plant brings, and it really is an amazing situation. And we are miles away from where we were when we started, and yet still miles away from where we need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it just being able to walk in San Francisco and not be in pain was just, it was amazing. It was the first time I did that. I was actually able to, I was almost in tears because I walked a full mile and didn't hurt. And it was just, it was so eye opening. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. we
Well,
can do it. We just have to keep working.
absolutely. Well, Lori, before we move on to our next board member, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us this evening?
Just thank you for doing this, and for everybody that is on board and helping, and please join us, and we're doing the good work, and we're working hard, and the more people that join us and the more people that want to help, the closer we're getting to the end results, which is our goal.
I
So,
agree, Lori. Thank you so very, very much for coming on with us.
all righty, thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to back up what she said. Membership is very, very important. So if you are on this call and you are not a member, please, please, please go to texasnormal.org and join our organization. Later on in the call, we'll kind of break down and explain kind of the importance of what we're talking about here. So, but again, Lori, thank you very, very much. And we're going to move on to our next board member. This person is a very, very good friend of mine. We have known each other almost longer than we haven't at this point. Brandon Collinsworth is our patient outreach coordinator. Brandon, would you please there you go. How are you, buddy? Welcome. Thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it.
Always good to be here.
Now, Brandon, you love telling this story, so I'm going to let you tell it. Brandon, how did you get involved with Texas Normal?
Well, how did I get involved with Texas Normal? If the people here haven't heard this story before, it was on couch bullying. So you know how there's cyberbullying, there's school bullying, there's sitting on someone's couch bullying. And
whoa, I did not bully this man.
Bullying.
I suggested repeatedly.
As he said, we've known each other. Actually, you are pretty close. We've known each other almost longer than we haven't at this point. But I would go hang out with Dave, and we'd play video games and just shoot the breeze and hang out. And he would consistently tell me, "Oh, got a normal meeting this week. You come in the normal meeting? Come to the normal meeting. You come in the normal meeting? Come to the normal meeting." So I was like, all right. Finally, I would start going, and pretty much became a member immediately once I started going. And then he kept pestering me. See, he just bullies me. That's what he does. I know this. He bullies me and was like, "When are you gonna get more involved? When are you gonna get more involved?" And I was like, "I don't have the time, can't do it." Until I finally did, had the time, got involved, and jumped pretty much straight in, feet first, into complete activism, going to the Capitol, putting on a suit, like things I don't do, to push this cause. And the first time I did it,
I'm sorry, I do have to interrupt you there for a moment.
Okay.
So at one point, I convinced him to stand up in front of the crowd at Flamingo Cantina and kind of tell his story. His story is touching, and it's very, very moving, and he tells it well. He's been telling it his whole life. So he did that, and he knocked it out of the park. He was like the guy at the meeting that every single body who was there wanted to come talk to afterwards. And so it was really, really empowering for him. And I invited him to speak at a much larger event up in Fort Worth. He spoke to about, what was it about? He said about 1,200 people that day.
1,200.
Something around that number. And in that day, he said, "Man, I'll do this all day, but you're never going to see me at the Capitol." Well, the following year, go ahead and pick it up and continue, Mr. Suit.
Yeah, so at that point, once the session started coming, you realize the importance of what we're doing. And at that point, I had to be it. I had to tell my story to those people. I had to share this message with people in a way I thought they would listen. You know, there's a lot about it that resonates when I walk in there, and so it was important for me to be front and center for that one. Everything flashed right there. It's where it all made sense.
Yeah, man. So and he did great too, by the way. I went with him his first time at the Capitol. and he did great. He was able to educate some staffers, and it was a great day. And he realized the ease of it, and since then he's convinced other people to go to the Capitol. He's a tremendous activist, and he is, like I said before, he is the patient coordinator for our Texas Normal Board. So B, tell us a little about your role with patient outreach.
Oh, patient outreach, I'm just trying to really continue the legacy of the people that came before me with Vincent Lopez and Aquila Winnicky. So at that point, it's just connecting with patients, getting their stories out so that we can get those in front of those legislators, the people that make the difference in the laws. Pretty much here recently, unfortunately, due to COVID and the lack of getting together with people, it's been a lot of social media campaigns and things through our Facebook page. If you're not following the Texas Normal Patient Outreach page, you should be. Lots of good information there. It's a great way to keep up with things. And hopefully once we can get past this, we can start ramping up and get patients involved with the next legislative session in 2023. Hopefully by then it'll be a little more normal. We can actually have in-person testimonials and things like that. So if you're a patient on here, I definitely tell you to clear your calendar, start planning now for that 2023 session, because we're going to need your voice at the Capitol. We're going to need you to speak and tell these stories to these legislators to make this change.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. B, I have to admit, man, I wasn't prepared for you to name drop Vincent there, and even brought a little tear to my eye. And I just want to tell you right now, man, I promise you, Vincent's proud of you. You are doing a great job, and you're going to continue to do a great job. So thank you very, very much for your time, B. I appreciate you.
Always, brother, always.
All right. So moving on to somebody else. Now, this person is, I would say, the second most tenured person on our Texas Normal Board. Did you come before Jax, or was it you? Was it Jax first?
No, Jax was here first.
Jax was here first. All right. So yeah, man, you've been here for a while, Jamie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to speak. So Dave asked me to kind of talk about, I guess you would say, my history with Normal overall, and as just part of the board presentation. So I did make a couple of notes because, as Dave told you, I'm old and therefore notes are good so I don't forget stuff. So if you're talking,
you're old, I said you were the second most tenured.
Well, it's unlikely that I've been around for a long time and that I'm not old, but okay, no need to argue the point. All right. So I don't know exactly when it was, would have been sometime in the early 2000s. I guess I should back up and say this. My name is Jamie Spencer. I am legal counsel for Texas Normal. I am a practicing criminal defense lawyer. And I graduated law school in 1997. And I started immediately being a criminal defense lawyer and defending people on a variety of drug cases and other types of cases as well. But there are lots of drug cases. If you take all sorts of cases as a criminal defense lawyer, you're going to get a bunch of drug cases. And of course, the most common one is possession of marijuana. Practiced that pretty much from day one. I think it was in the early 2000s. Of course, I was aware of the National Normal Organization. But it would have been in the early 2000s that I joined what's called the National Normal Legal Committee. It's for lawyers around the country that, I mean, realistically, honestly, it's like paying to be on a group, in a group of people that are all focused on this one thing. And of course, you can tell people that you're a member of the National Normal Legal Committee as well. That might help them hire you if they have been unfortunately charged with the possession of marijuana. So anyway, I was doing this for a couple of years, and eventually I became a member of the National Normal Legal Committee. Now, this is 50 states all over the country, lawyers from literally everywhere. And as most of our viewers will know, Texas was not in the forefront at the time of marijuana decriminalization. We're making big steps now, but we're talking almost, what was that? Honestly, it's probably about 18 years ago. I think maybe about 2003. I like to joke that one of the things that was almost annoying about being a part of that group was California had somewhat legalized by at some point early on while I was on that committee for national normal, and people would email the listserv. Lawyers would email the listserv and say, "Hey, listen, I just won a case, say for example in California, where I showed that it was medical or it was allowed for some other legitimate reason, in some state where it was illegal in some circumstances and not in others. Hey, does anybody on the listserv have a motion to get your client's pot back? Because I want my client's stash of pot that they took from him. I want that marijuana given back to him because he, it's been decided by a court that he was not committing a criminal act." Obviously, if you're in Texas and you're a criminal defense lawyer, you're pretty much going into court on a regular basis and saying, "I don't think there's enough evidence to prove this is my client's marijuana," not, "Hey, this is, yes, that's my client's marijuana." But at any rate, that was sort of the start of me getting involved in normal. And then one of the things that is still very valuable to me in my practice on that listserv, and I might talk about it later, depends on how much time we have here. People will put their legal briefs on the listserv. They will bounce ideas off each other. "Hey guys, this is my fact pattern. My client was driving. Yes, he committed a traffic violation, so they had a right to get in his business in the first place. But here's what happened. What kind of ideas are there?" So national normal in the 2000s, before I got hooked up with Texas normal, was really, it was a professional organization for me that obviously also advocated for, it's not a normal overall is not an organization for lawyers, but this one particular committee on it was super, super helpful. And for example, when you think about the hemp bill that came through, what is that, 2019? I do get my years wrong sometime, but something like that, the federal hemp bill that suddenly potentially made it didn't so much make it legal to possess 0.3% THC cannabis, although it did. It made it, from my perspective as a defense lawyer, it made it not illegal to possess it. So it made it more difficult in state prosecutions in Texas for the prosecutors to prove that what my client had was the illegal type of marijuana. And in the last few months, I got this fantastic federal brief from another lawyer on the National Normal Legal Committee that laid out all of their reasons for why they were up against a prosecutor who thought they didn't have to prove the percentage. They were just going to try to prove it some other way. And so this brief was filed. There were several hearings and all those sorts of things. And, you really don't want to recreate the wheel. If somebody has already, if they're already in the business and they're winning hearings in California or whatever other state they may be in, you want to know about it too. So that was my first dip into having something to do with normal overall. Then it would have been in about 2009. A fellow named Josh Schimberg gave me a call kind of out of the blue. Texas Normal, which I had actually come to some events and I knew about Texas Normal and there was stuff on 6th Street and those sorts of things, but I wasn't really that involved at the time until then. Another lawyer who I also know named Bruce Fox had semi-regularly been available for Texas Normal to give a Know Your Rights speech for the monthly meeting. He would come. I'm not sure how often he did it, but I know he did it some. And for whatever reason, he was unavailable. I wrote a blog that was primarily an anti-drug war blog. That was probably from about 2006 to about 2012. I've pretty much abandoned that now, but that's how Josh found me. And he said, he calls me up and says, hey, listen, I normally have this speaker. I think Bruce, he may have even talked to Bruce, and Bruce may have dropped my name or something. But anyway, Josh found me and said, hey, can you come down to Brave New Books? If anybody remembers that bookstore, sort of underground bookstore on the drag on Guadalupe. Can you do a Know Your Rights presentation? That would have been in 2009. That was the first time
I was there actually in that little basement that day. Yep.
Awesome.
I sure
awesome.
was.
Yeah. And then, and this was really, I would say it was a coincidence, except to some extent it's not a coincidence, because by then Texas was moving slightly closer towards potential decriminalization and eventual full legalization. Obviously, we still have a ways to go, so we weren't there then. But a lawyer named David Sloan out of Dallas, I can't even remember how I hooked up with him, but he had done something kind of silly. I think he may have put something about it on the National Normal listserv. I honestly don't remember how I found out about it, but for those people out there that know about the Austin Truth Car, that was the Crown Vic that used to be a police car that had the green lights on it and said all sorts of wonderful stuff and had a pot leaf on the front. And at the time, I think it was more appropriate for us to sort of drive around in that car. At that point, honestly, Texas Normal, even by the late 2000s, we didn't have huge hope of getting anything done in the next legislative session like we do now, because we're getting little things done now, right? So we can hope for medium things and bigger things. We had done nothing had changed since 1974. In 1974, some quantities of possession of marijuana were removed from felonies to, well, actually, that may have also been in 1969. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's been, let's just put it this way. By that point, it had been 25 to 30 years minimum. Shoot, sorry, guys, I'm doing the math wrong. 35 to 40 years minimum since there had been significant changes in reducing penalties for marijuana possession in Texas. So anyway, we brought the Austin Truth Car to meetings and went to some other events with it. And actually, Josh, I do remember now, it was Josh that told me about David Sloan. Josh and I drove to Waco and met him there and got the Austin Truth Car. So that was around for a while. And then I think it was probably during the time that we went to go get that car that Josh asked me just to attend some meetings of the board. I wasn't an officer yet. I can't remember the different, hierarchy of positions, but I wasn't anything really. I was just going to come over to his house and listen to the rest of the board and what they were doing. And after a few of those meetings, I was eventually invited on to be on the board as the legal counsel. There were no lawyers on the board at that point. In fact, even Bruce Fox, I don't think had technically been a member of the board in the past. So I may have been the first lawyer that was a actual board member of Texas Normal. And that was at the point where Josh was running every individual meeting by himself and standing at the table most of the time. I mean, Josh put in substantial amounts of work, but I started coming to board meetings, started regularly attending monthly meetings. I was an invited speaker at that point as a board member occasionally for our Know Your Rights sessions. As some of you know from the video Zooming, we've been doing a little bit of the Know Your Rights occasionally as well by Zoom. But I used to do those in person at the Flamingo Cantina every once in a while. At any rate, eventually I became a director. I guess the other highlights that I would talk about in terms of my participation in Texas Normal, these are really more personal things. This is not me bragging about things that I've accomplished. This is, when you go down to the legislature, for example, 2013, I think, was the year that I had a tiny but positive impact at the legislature, something that I could kind of take home with me after the session that was meaningful to me. It's possible it was 2011, but I think it was 2013. By way of sort of history, there were, I would say by 2013, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3. Yeah, I think that would have been approximately the 7th or 8th consecutive legislative session, which means for 14 or 16 different years, there were 2 different legislators, Harold Dutton in Houston and Elliot Neistat here in Austin. Each of them introduced a bill that was favorable to us. Neistat had introduced a bill every 2 years about necessity being a defense, essentially. Like if you needed the marijuana for your own health or for your own good, that ought to be something that your criminal defense lawyer ought to be able to bring up to a jury. That never went anywhere. I believe, and Harold Dutton, the possession of marijuana statute says 0 to 2 ounces is a Class B misdemeanor up to 180 days. He introduced, I think it was up to an ounce would have been a Class C misdemeanor, was his bill. And that was there for 5, 6, 7 sessions in a row. Never went anywhere. What I mean by that is, I guess everything gets assigned to a committee, but I mean, it never made it further in the process. There were, over those 10 to 12 years, at least 1 or possibly 2 total hearings on those bills, when there would have been an opportunity to have 14 or 15 or 16 of them. So we just, that was just the opportunity to sit in front of, for example, for Dutton, it would be the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee and testify. We weren't even given the opportunity for that. The bill didn't make it that far along. Then in 2013, while at one of the, I was just a Texas normal member at that point. I wasn't walking around saying, hey, because I'm a lawyer, I, should be given some sort of, special dispensation or that you should listen to me more. I was there on one of our lobby days, and I was fortunate enough to take a group of Houstonians to one of their House members. I should go back and remember her name at some point. She might still be there. I learned something that year. She was a friend of Elliot Neistat, and she was completely unaware that he had a bill that would make prosecution of marijuana cases a little bit fairer in Texas. And she immediately, when we told her about it, she was like, yes, I will go and I will be a co-signer. I will be a co-sponsor the next day. And this was a time when there are 150 House members. These bills had 2 or 3 or maybe 4 other members signing on saying, yes, I actually support this legislation, right? Which is nothing. You got to get 76 people out of 150 to agree to do it. But just, Texas Normal gave me that opportunity to walk around the Capitol and to interact with legislators. And of course, nothing happened in 2013. I get that. But just being part of expanding the knowledge of the legislators that were there. What that told me was there are probably reasonable people who are legislators at the Capitol that really haven't even considered this issue at all. It's just not on their agenda. That's not what they ran on. It's not what their focus is. It's not what their background is. So I realized the Texas Normal, and I didn't have much to do with organizing the lobby days either. I don't want to pretend that I was behind that massive effort. Jackson, a whole bunch of people obviously had a whole lot to do with that. But that was 2013. That was the first time that I felt like, instead of just being a symbol, what I mean by that was I felt like the times that I spoke at Flamingo Cantina or anywhere else about it, if I was, interviewed on the news or something like that, I felt like before then, we didn't have any realistic shot during the next legislative session to make things better, but it was important for employed, rational, well-meaning, well-intentioned folks, adults, to be able to stand up in a crowd in public and say, this law is wrong and we need to change it, right? A lot of people still probably, if you did polling, thought the law was wrong then, but there wasn't much momentum to change it. So that was 2013. I think it was 2015. If somebody wants to jump in and tell me, what was the time, which legislative session was the one where the House finally passed a bill and it went to the Senate, died there. It was at the end of the session, but I remember that. I think that was
2015.
That was
it?
15, and
Yeah.
then
So-
teacup passed in 17.
Right. So 2015.
Teacup passed in 15.
15. Okay, my apologies. Teacup passed in 15. Thank you, Jack.
So after the 2015 session, I sent an email to the Austin Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, which is obviously much, it's not Texas wide, it's just Austin, it's a bunch of criminal defense lawyers, saying, hey, look at what Normal did this year, look at what marijuana legislation is. And just to be clear, on that criminal defense lawyer listserv, there is quite frequently talk about what are the new laws, how did everything get worse, all those sorts of things that we're kind of expecting. And, we have to keep up with that. And it's a big job to do it. So I'm a participant in that listserv, but for the first time ever, I bragged about Texas Normal, about what they had accomplished, not me, but Texas Normal and all the people that showed up and those sorts of things. And I laid out for people, here's the progress that we finally made this session. I did that in part because I was starting to sort of become known in the Travis County / Austin criminal defense community as a lawyer that was involved in this effort. So people would come up and ask me in the courthouse and I would tell them, but I thought, hey, I need to tell everybody. And typically when I sent a message to that listserv, I would just put, Jamie, maybe Jamie Spencer. But this time, and I made kind of a big deal about it, I said, this is the first time I'm saying this on this listserv, Jamie Spencer, legal counsel for Texas Normal. And I was contacted almost immediately by the person who does most of, or a huge amount of, the continuing legal education for Travis County and Austin for criminal defense lawyers specifically, and asked to give a CLE, a speech to other lawyers where they get credit for showing up to it, and you have to supposedly teach them something. And this was specifically about marijuana related DWIs. So it was sort of about marijuana, but it was within the context of, if the person who's being accused of being intoxicated, if the substance they're saying that they were intoxicated on is THC, marijuana, instead of alcohol, then talk about that. So I gave that, and that kind of, this isn't even something I've talked with the other Texas Normal board members about, but that got a lot of local lawyers calling me on marijuana and concentrate cases, those sorts of things on sort of a regular basis. So that was actually, first off, I became a lawyer because I like to hear myself talk. So it's nice to be called by other lawyers and talk about their cases. That's fun. But also, it's helpful to me to think about these issues. It's weird because you think all these cases are probably the same, but honestly, the facts every time are a little bit different. And that's what you need to use to somehow try to use the law to your advantage so your client doesn't get punished too much for something that they shouldn't be punished for in the first place. So that was around 2015. It was probably about 2019 when the hemp bill stuff starts coming in, and we start talking about the lower percentage THC. Can they distinguish what is defined as hemp versus what is defined as marijuana? Who is the burden on? The state seemed to think that, by the state I mean the prosecutors, in some counties seem to think we don't need to prove that. I think they're wrong. That hasn't been fully litigated, believe it or not. So we'll wait and see, or maybe we'll make so much progress in terms of decriminalization or legalization that it won't matter anymore. But that's an issue that's still being litigated. For example, at that point, I actually started getting calls from lawyers like around Texas, that weren't in Austin. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was a prosecutor from, I'll just say, an outlying county, one that is, well, none of them are known to be as, let's say, progressive as Travis County. So I'll leave it at that. Call from a prosecutor who needed to had been invited herself to give a he said, she said speech to this lawyer organization called Order of the Coif, and she knew about my involvement in it because I had represented somebody. Actually, she was the prosecuting attorney in the case, but she knew that I was a source of information for those sorts of things. Had to sit down, a great talk with her. All of these things are great. That Texas Normal, gave me the opportunity to sit down with a felony prosecutor. This was a concentrates case. So it was, I mean, a misdemeanor marijuana case is not nothing, but a felony case is substantially more serious, right? So being able to sit down, being asked by a prosecutor to do that, Texas Normal gave me that opportunity. And to, you know, just to spread the word. That's part of what we are. In some ways, it comes back to what I said before about being an adult and standing up in a crowd of people and saying this law is wrong. That's kind of what it came down to.
That's a great way to wrap it up, man. I hate to cut you off, but we do
No
have
worries.
to move on. And that was I love the way you tied all that together, man. You lawyered the hell out of that. So thank you very much. That was great. I appreciate your time and all your efforts and all your energy as well. Thank you very much, Jamie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, guys. So as promised, I did tell everyone that we're going to move on and talk about the importance of membership. So from there, we're going to let you hear from Les Weiler, who is our membership director. Les, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for hosting the meeting, Dave. Thanks everybody for being here, everybody on Facebook. I was talking to a friend the other day about depending on how long you've been around cannabis, you may or may not really remember the period of time where you couldn't even bring it up around people who didn't like it. I mean, you'd have to play it off at jobs. You could just never mention it. And now there's a whole generation for whom there is no debate that the only harmful thing about cannabis is the law. And unfortunately, the people running the upper levels of Texas government aren't in that group. So we get a situation where loosening pot laws in Texas polls at 80% or more support to at least expand our medical or get we're surrounded by states with looser pot laws than we do. But when we bring it up, the politicians don't necessarily support the change that Texas says it wants in polls. So now we're between sessions. And instead of being at their offices, making our case, trying to change their minds, I get to be here talking to you instead to tell you that together our voice is stronger. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I think, honestly, if you're talking about cannabis law in a room in Texas, there's a good chance you're talking to supporters. Like I just said, it polls really well. It polls better than almost any single politician I can imagine. But y'all might not be members. And I need y'all to know that it takes work to do the work of lobbying, which I didn't really understand until I helped with this organization. But like Jamie was talking about, it takes work to keep various legislators, when you put 5 or 6 dozen bills concerning this issue up, not all of them are solid, and some of them are disingenuous. And you've got to sort and see which ones to really support and try to aim that support when it's timely. All of this takes effort and it takes organization. We put together a voter's guide. We do all sorts of work. I am proud to volunteer my time to try to get this issue fixed in my state, and I would love your help. So to help, you can go to texasnormal.org/join. That's JOIN. It's like joint without the T. So texasnormal.org/join. Your membership will help with efforts to educate elected officials to the reality of legal cannabis, what it can do for Texas citizens, what it can do for our economy. Also, we're a pretty fun group to be part of. Our voice gets louder and we get better with everybody who joins. Your personality, your efforts are needed here so that we can grow and strengthen this organization in readiness for next session. So I really hope that you'll go to texasnormal.org and /join and give us a shot. Dave?
Les, that was great, man. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. And this last person needs absolutely no introduction. Jax Finkel, our executive director. Please join us. How are you?
Hello, hello. How are you, Dave?
I am great. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for hosting tonight. Thanks to all the board members for joining, and Stephen for manning the back channel, all of the producing you're seeing happening. So good to be here with you guys tonight. It's been a busy day. Today is September 1st, and it is the rollout of the changes to the Texas Compassionate Use Program. So that means that all of a sudden, every reporter in Texas is like, so what's going on with that? Could you tell me about that? So that was really nice today. I got to hang out with a veteran friend of mine who just qualified for the program. As some of you might know, I also recently qualified for the program. So it's a big day. Our sister organization, Informed Texas, held a tutorial, a free tutorial, because sponsors wanted to make sure to help us to make sure it was free for the patients, on how to enroll in the program. And almost 1,000 people have registered and enrolled and are watching the program to figure out how to become a part of the Texas Compassionate Use Program. I keep saying program. We need to like find a funner word or like a catchier word or something for it. But so it's a good day. Before I talk a little bit about myself, I just want to let everybody know what is happening and changing today is that PTSD and all forms of cancer are now qualifying conditions for our program, and they have also changed the concentration of the medicine. So you could always get whatever THC your doctor prescribed, but it is limited by this concentration, so you have to consume more of this carrier oil. So it's kind of cool that we're doing a get to know you thing. I don't normally, talk too much about my personal side of it, but it is nice to kind of feel, I wouldn't say full circle, but like a lot of the circle around that now I'm able to participate in a program. I remember when I was thinking, man, it would just be great if there was a program I could participate in, and I can. And I know that from the inside, I'll be able to hopefully understand more on how we can make it better and easier for patients. Definitely working on making it, more affordable and more inclusive. But I first got involved with Texas Normal back in late 2005, early 2006. I met Josh and Leah Schimberg at a political meeting, and they were like, so the cannabis stuff. And I was like, yeah, what about that cannabis stuff? Meh? And so from that moment on, I kind of started to learn more about the issue, understanding more about the science behind it, the policy behind it, information about criminal justice that I don't think I would have been exposed to otherwise. And I became a member, and shortly after that, I became a volunteer for the board, where I volunteered regularly, and I was the volunteer coordinator. And then slowly over time, I was like, okay, well, now how about if I do the policy and legislative director? And, during that time, planning and organizing those first lobby days, I remember the first one we did that was in like 2009, 2011, we had like less than 20 people. We were like, yes, this is awesome. And our last in-person lobby day in 2019, we had over 400 people. So just for like frame of reference, that's grown real well. And also, later on, I decided that, people were always like, well, how does the candidate stand on cannabis? And that was not something that the League of Women Voters was asking. So in 2012, I created the Voters Guide, and we've been doing general election every time, and recently also started doing the primary elections as well, because that's really where it's the most competitive due to gerrymandering. And then over time, we got busier and busier, y'all. I became deputy director, and in 2015, the program passed. And, at the time I had a young kid, I was working in real estate, and then volunteering like full-time hours, lobbying up at the Capitol to try to get that bill to pass. And the team was like, so you're right, we can't just like do this all on a volunteer basis. And it ended up that I was able to come on as the first executive director that was doing that as a job full time. And that's been a really wild ride. We've had a lot of work and a lot of changes. We've seen a couple legislative sessions where we've been able to improve the laws, where we've been able to roll out hemp legislation. And in addition to that, we've actually really pulled the conversation about penalty reduction and decriminalization a really far way. I mean, a concentrate penalty reduction bill was this close to passing this session. So we've come a long way. We still have much work to do, but I don't know. I guess that's what I have to say about that, my story with Texas Normal. But I did see, I think, a couple questions in here. I don't know if are we ready for Q&A, everybody? Like, do we all pop on our screens in Q&A, or what do you think,
Yeah,
Dave?
I think we can do that. We can do that. Do you want to facilitate the Q&A for us? Do you want to?
Yeah. So let's start with. I'll come to the Facebook questions here in a minute, but there is a person on here asking, I would like to have some information on when the state will issue new licenses. I've gotten zero cooperation and feedback from the Texas Compassionate Use Program individuals. So and just for everybody who is on Zoom, drop your questions in the Q&A box down in the lower bar. And if you're on Facebook, just drop it in the comments and we'll get to that. So as far as the Texas Compassionate Use Program licensees, so the statutory minimum is 3. There are currently 3 licensees. 2 of them are really active. The third one, like, I've never been able to talk to a person there. So, and they opened it up, I think it was either last October or the October before that, to add more licenses because they knew the program was expanding. That means the patient pool should expand, right? And they, in the middle of the day, just were like, oh wait, never mind, forget about that. Well, people had already applied and put in their money and everything, and it was a whole thing to refund their fees, and it was a whole thing. And essentially, the governor is in charge of the DPS, who is in charge of the licensing, and they said that until the patient pool grows significantly enough, that licensing will likely to hold out. So that's why making the program more inclusive so that there's a larger patient pool is really important. So hopefully that answered Carter's question. There's also, I think maybe it was in the chat. So y'all make sure to definitely put your questions in the Q&A so we don't miss them. But was it Julian was asking about the whole hemp thing? It's Julian, you wrote a lot. Okay, you're a verbose person. I'm not going to read the whole thing, Julian. I'm going to summarize it. So essentially what happened, and you know what? Is there a way that we can see everybody, Stephen? Ooh, let's go to gallery. Okay. Hi, it's all of us. Hi, all of us. So what happened with the hemp program was that it passed in 2019 after the 2018 hemp bill had passed federally. So that took the Federal Controlled Substance Act, the CSA, and it made where 0.3% THC or less was now legal or not on the Controlled Substance Act, right? And then so it was at that point that each state could either come up with their own regulations to oversee what a hemp program would look like, or they would be forced to comply with whatever the USDA regulations ultimately were. So in Texas, our Controlled Substance Act, that's not the exact name of it, but it matches the federal one, and there's a way to trigger a change to it. And so what Julian was wanting to know is if federally, the descheduling of cannabis happens where it's no longer on the Controlled Substance Act, are we ready to work through that process? And the answer is yes, Julian, of course, of course. Did anybody want to join in a little bit about the hemp changes and the descheduling at the federal level?
Jamie, perhaps? Jamie still with us?
He might, I think he is. I'm just going to read in the comments here for a second and see.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to scroll through there also.
If I'm missing any. So there's some people that are wanting to talk about the program, and specifically with PTSD and cancer and qualifying for that. So there's kind of 2 routes that you can go. For example, with PTSD, do you already have a PTSD diagnosis? If the answer is no, then you need to see someone who can evaluate you and diagnose you that's on the registry. If the answer is yes, that you already have your diagnosis, then you can use any of the telemed platform doctors that are out there. You provide them your documentation to prove that you have this diagnosis and what, therapies you are currently using for it. And then at that point, they can evaluate you and see if they think that you should qualify. And if so, how much THC, et cetera, do you need? So there's kind of two avenues to enrolling in the process, so if you already know you are diagnosed with a condition that's included, you can go the telemed route, which is great because you can do it from anywhere. Previously, if you lived like in the valley, the closest doctor was like 4 hours away that you could see, and that can be really hard for a patient to be able to deal with that. So. And if you go to the Informed Texas website, you can register for that free tutorial there, and it'll walk you through the whole process from using the telemed platform to processing your prescription. And we had a pharmacist join us to also talk about, what are some of the potential interactions you should watch out for. And we also had another doctor kind of talking about your endocannabinoid system and how it works with the plant. So it was really great. And I mean, like almost 1,000 patients have participated in it. So it's pretty wild to me. I'm hoping that a lot of people can get relief. Okay, so I don't see any more on Facebook.
I don't see any other questions. I do see, I want to give a shout out to Tanker for Fun. Tanker for Fun sent us a little message that they joined Texas Normal Lifetime membership. So Tanker for Fun, we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the volunteers will get it packed up and sent to you shortly. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Okay, I see a question about, does degenerative disc disease in the lower back qualify as chronic pain bracket? So I couldn't answer that question for you specifically, but what I can tell you is that at this time, chronic pain is not a specific condition that is included in the program. The bill originally had chronic pain in it, but the lieutenant governor had it removed in the Senate, sadly, very sadly. However, there is peripheral neuropathy as a qualifying condition, and that often comes with a lot of pain. So that will help some people in that manner. So just to let you know about that. Okay, what you got, Dave? Anything else?
Not that I can think of. I think we've covered quite a bit. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I really like that we were able to take this opportunity to get to know one another, because that's the one thing that we have been missing with these virtual meetings is the opportunity to hang out afterwards and get to know each other. So thank you everybody on this call for kind of getting, letting us get to know you a little bit. And thank you everybody for paying attention and watching and joining in and tuning in. And again, thank you to everybody who's joining our organization. Membership is so very important, and we could not do any of this without you. So with that, I am complete. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate each and every one of you.
Thanks for hosting, Dave. It was great to see all you guys.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks everybody who watched.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye, everyone.
Later, guys.